Hey, it's Dora, and you are now tuning into the Sunday Scaries Student Edition. I am joined by the wonderful Gael. Gael, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gael Aitor. I am one of the hosts of the Teenager Therapy podcast, and I'm so excited to be here. I think today's episode is going to be a good one.
Oh, it will be. So recently, I have been thinking a lot about identity and the concept of being one person at home and another outside of it. And I actually started thinking about this because I listened to your episode of Teenager Therapy about being an immigrant. And it really resonated with me because my parents are from Africa. So my mom's from Kenya and my dad is from Ghana. And it definitely felt at times like there was two Doras. So Gael, I would love to talk to you about your own journey as an immigrant and the effect you think it had on your identity and who you are today.
I came to this country when I was 6 years old. So not only am I a child of immigrants, I am an immigrant myself. My mom is from Mexico, and that's where I was born. And coming to this country, not speaking English, I quickly realized I have to learn the language. By second grade, I was speaking English more fluently. And by third grade, I was able to communicate pretty well. I spoke English.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I was surrounded by people from my community and from my ethnicity. So there was that support. But throughout that time, I was watching Disney Channel and all these shows, all these cartoons. And I remember just being so upset. I'm like, I want to speak English. But my mom would always tell me, no, you could only speak Spanish at home.
Yeah.
I would play on the PS4. I would play video games with my friends online.
Yeah.
And we would be chatting. And I would feel almost embarrassed that you could hear people in the background speaking Spanish. I always muted myself. I remember as soon as anyone came into my room or anyone called or I heard any background noise, I would be like, oop, mute. Did you feel that way? What was it like when you were a kid?
Yeah, it's interesting because my mom, she wanted us to speak English because she wanted us to assimilate, get good jobs. You know, she didn't want us to stand out. So we spoke English at home. That's it. Now, as an adult, I wish I could speak my mother tongue. I feel so lost when I'm around my other cousins that live in Kenya and everyone's talking. And I'm just there I don't know what anyone's saying. But there is that yearning to want to know that side of me because it's who I am. But, I grew up in northern Canada being the only Black person in my school, my family being the only Black family in town. So it's you want to fit in, but you can't.
Yeah.
Even if I'm trying to speak the best English and, doing my hair, making it super straight, it's I still stand out. I can't really do anything to change my skin color. So there was a little bit of shame there. There was a little bit of an identity crisis because it's I'm African at home, but then I have to be Canadian in school. Because my parents, even though they didn't speak their language around us, they still had very African values. Their ways of looking at the world were very different. So I wasn't allowed to have sleepovers, couldn't have friends over. It was just school, church, and that's it. Did your parents have any cultural values that they instilled?
I think my mom has always been just a very free soul in the way she thinks. So I think when she immigrated to the USA, she was very much escaping a lot of the molds that she was supposed to fit into. And she never forced anything like religion on us. The only thing she did do is to remind us that speaking another language is a privilege.
Yeah.
And to remind yourself of where you come from. And so those are the values that I grew up around, but I didn't quite comprehend what they meant until I was much older. I think it wasn't until around freshman, sophomore year where I really started to have pride in being able to speak Spanish. I know my culture. I was raised by it too.
Yeah.
And now I totally get what she was doing. She had these cultural values that she instilled on me, but not in a way that limits me.
That's so beautiful. And I'm curious because for me, when I was growing up, diversity and how we talk about it now, that was never spoken about. It's you're different, that's it. But how have you seen the trend change and evolve?
What's so interesting is the internet allowed so many more people to share their culture. People start making memes of their culture and sharing their humor.
Yeah.
And I think it really brought people together. And all of the kids that once felt alone and isolated and like they were foreigners in this country
Yeah.
are now able to go on the internet and realize there's so many people like me. They understand my humor. They understand my experience. We can joke about it.
Yeah. And I think it also breaks down the fear that other people have about different cultures because you fear what you don't understand, right? Well,
Yeah.
that's what I believe. So now you get to see it on TikTok. Someone's like making their food and like all these different things. Whereas before it was like, what is this girl eating? Or that smells,
Right?
Dora, like different
Yeah.
things. But then you realize this is coming from a really beautiful place and this is a part of your ancestry. And there's a lot of honor that's there.
Seeing the way everyone is so thankful for their culture and openly celebrating it has allowed that gratitude to seep into my own mind.
Yeah.
Of before, it was a lot of what was going on in my mind was shame and insecurity, and now I feel that gratefulness. I feel thankful. I feel proud
Yeah.
of my immigrant status and where I come from. And so I think something important to keep in mind when thinking about your role as an immigrant is there's a lot of pride in that. And taking a moment to acknowledge what a beautiful thing it is.
Yeah.
And telling yourself and reaffirming yourself about these incredible qualities you possess is so powerful if you're someone that struggles with that sense of identity and not belonging.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my next question. I was going to ask you if there's someone that's listening because, we're talking about it in a very beautiful way, but there may be someone that's listening that isn't there yet in their
Yeah.
journey. So curious, you said honoring where you're from and taking pride in where you're from, but what would you tell someone that would say that they're struggling?
I think I would definitely tell them to take a moment to dive deep into your culture, understand it,
Yeah.
figuring out what it is you don't know.
Yeah.
Like you said, a lot of times we're scared of the unknown. And so shining some light to that darkness and to that part of yourself
Yeah.
and being very introspective about who you are, where you come from, and the people that make up your community is really important. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of that you start to see the beauty in your culture because certain customs you might not like. If your mom makes you wear a certain type of clothing during a certain type of holiday, you might be
Yeah.
like, I don't like this. I feel terrible. I want to wear just a suit like everyone else. But it's
Yeah.
like, find out the meaning behind it.
Yeah.
Understand why it is the way it is, the intention as to why that culture and that custom exists. And I think that really helps you be more thankful and appreciative of your culture.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I would say for myself, for those of you that were maybe like me and had to and are still navigating that identity crisis with being someone that is different at home versus at school, I think for me, what really changed was having compassion for my parents and even just recognizing the journey that they took to allow me to grow up in Canada and not back home. Like my mom was 20 when she left Kenya and went to the UK and then was providing for the rest of her siblings. She has like 7 siblings. And then she came to Canada by herself and she had my brother and was a single mom. And so when I can be mindful and be present with that, there's a lot of compassion that can come up of like, wow, because I could never, I could never
Yeah.
do what she did. And so that allows me to have like a little soft spot and like tenderness there for my parents of like, oh, you did the best that you could do with what you knew how.
That's a really good point.
I feel this conversation that we're having, it just keeps on coming back to identity.
It almost feels like we have to take on 2 personalities. The personality at home
Yeah.
with our ethnic parents and the personality with our friends and everyone else.
Yeah. It all comes down to the fact that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I think what can cause a lot of conflict is the fact that we try to separate the two. It's like having that split sense of a personality is hard to maintain and it's hard to keep up. So how can I bring my whole self to different situations and trust like who I am is enough?
That's a really good point.
So even outside the realm of having immigrant parents, what are things that people can do just to embrace their full selves if they're struggling with their identity?
Taking time to be alone, kind of rid myself of all these expectations, has helped me tremendously in figuring out what is next for me and who do I feel most comfortable being. Because it's so difficult to decide who we want to be when there's so many people that are trying to influence who we are.
Yeah. And I think another thing for me that's been helpful is like just trying to become aware of when I'm judging myself and seeing if I can let go. Like, how does it feel right now in this moment to believe this thought that's coming up? Like, it feels horrible. And then I'm like, oh man, I don't even want to be thinking this way. So I'm like, okay, let's let it go and think about something else or shift my perspective to the fact that I'm alive and I have a body that is able to walk, run, jump,
Yeah.
play, all these different things. And being able to cultivate a non-judgmental awareness is like one of the most foundational things you can do when you do begin your meditation practice. So that's something that it took a lot of time and effort and almost like discipline, because it's like I had to reprogram myself almost of like, instead of believing these judgmental thoughts that have been with me since I was super young, I'm like, okay, I have to like turn the dial, change the frequency a little bit to appreciate myself more and not to be so harsh and critical on how I'm showing up.
Yeah. That's so important. I fully agree with that.
So, speaking of mindfulness, this is a great break to dive into that meditation and just take a moment to honor our unique selves. So, wherever you are, just take a moment to get comfortable and settle in. Settle into your mind and body. Feel the weight of the body pressing down into the chair or floor beneath you. Feel the feet connecting to the floor. Just noticing that gentle sensation of the breath. Now, let's just take a deep breath, breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the mouth, letting everything go. And again, breathing in and breathing out. Just allowing the breath to return to its natural rate and rhythm. And if it feels right for you, just inviting you to place a hand over your heart. Just connecting to this universal place of love and kindness and compassion. Feeling that rising and falling of your chest and stomach. Feeling that sense of aliveness. And maybe just sending some gratitude to your parents and for their journey. To your ancestors that paved the way for you to be here. Trying not to get caught up in the stories or thoughts that may come with that, but connecting to that sense of gratitude and appreciation. And then honoring yourself in this moment, however you are showing up. Honoring your uniqueness. Just sending gratitude to yourself for who you are in this moment. Trusting that you are enough. Just continuing to breathe. And then taking another deep breath, breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the mouth. Allowing your hand just to rest in your lap. Connecting to that sensation of the feet on the floor. Noticing any sounds around you in your space. And when you're ready, slowly and gently opening your eyes. And again, just taking a moment here to reflect on how that practice felt. what came up for you. Just noticing any thoughts that may be present as well. How are you feeling, Gael?
I feel a lot more mindful.
Yeah.
And a little bit more thankful too.
Yeah. Amazing. I think, it always for me comes back to just appreciation and gratitude. Like when I think about all the decisions, all the choices, all the things that my parents had to do just to align for me to be right here in this moment, I'm like, I have so much to be grateful for. Because one wrong choice, I could have been somewhere completely different.
Oh my gosh, yes. Thankfully, it all worked out.
Yes. Being raised by immigrant parents can be complicated and challenging, but it's also completely wonderful, and I personally wouldn't change a thing. There's a lot of pressure to conform, especially when you're young, but by practicing self-love and accepting who you are and where you come from, there are ways to combat this pressure. So again, just to recap what we discussed today, you can start by practicing self-compassion and extending yourself and your parents' kindness and love, and remembering to honor where your parents came from and what it took for them to be here. There's also just being aware of the fact that things change. Sometimes culture can be trendy, and that means that what was in style last year may not be in style next year. So just know that there's no shame about where you come from, because you never know. Next year, it might be the next biggest thing. Did you have any tips before we go, Gael?
I really would say just that compassion aspect of it. Be kind to your parents. Try to feel and understand where they come from, what led them to this moment. And if you ever find yourself not understanding why your parents doing what they're doing, keep asking yourself why. Because it helps extend a lot of that patience that sometimes they might be a little bit more deserving of.
I love that. And just a heads up, if you didn't know, Headspace offers a lot of content around navigating identity. So if you are curious or wanting to learn more, be sure to check out the Navigating Injustice collection in the Headspace app today. All right, folks, we will see you back here next week, where Gael and I will be diving into the juicy topic of how to move through and navigate breakups, because we all know those things can be tough.
It's going to be a good one.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, Gael, thank you so much for blessing us with your presence.
Thank you for having me.
And we will see you all back here next week.